Marcano, do you have any questions?
No changes from me.
No changes here.
None here. So minutes are approved. Any announcements?
Rick, you're on the phone. Would you like to just briefly talk about the event at Spring Hill Park, Colorado Freedom Memorial event real quick?
I can certainly do that. Thank you very much, Brooke. I appreciate it. Coming up on Saturday, our 10th anniversary. It's hard for a lot of us to believe. It's been 10 years now since we dedicated that memorial out there, but it is our 10th anniversary this year. And we've got pretty special guests coming from all over the country to be a part of it. The U.S. Air Force Honor Garden drill team coming out from Joint Base Bowling in outside of Washington, D.C., the director of the Air National Guard, Lieutenant General Mike Lowe, coming to join us from the Pentagon, and others in attendance. It should be a beautiful day out there. We've got a wonderful ceremony planned, some surprises. We have some community members that are actually participating in the program in a pretty special presentation. So I don't want to give it all away. I want you to come and see it. So it starts as always at 8 o'clock with our pancake breakfast out there in the parking lot. Great pancake truck. They've been coming for 5 years. I've never had a pancake because I'm busy in the morning, and by the time I get over there, they're gone. People just love this pancake truck. We have them. The Beverly Bells will be in the parking lot singing to greet people as they come. And the Sound of the Rockies men's chorus, who was at our dedication, is returning for the 10th anniversary. So they'll be performing the music during our official ceremony. And yeah, it's going to be a great day. A lot of Civil Air Patrol kids. It's just going to be a great day. A lot going on. And if you got a minute to give, to remember what the weekend's all about, I can't think of a better place than to be out there with us on Saturday.
Thank you, Rick.
Councilmember Medina.
Yes, go ahead.
I will also add that with Saturday Memorial Weekend, we'll be opening our outdoor pools. I sent a pool schedule to council members earlier this week, or it was late last week. And we're excited. We have more lifeguards in the queue coming in that we're processing. And so we believe we'll be adding hours as we progress early here in June, and we feel like we have something for everyone. So we're excited about the 2023 summer season.
Great news. Any other announcements? If not, we'll move to agenda items. Number 4A, open space maintenance management. Brian Green.
Good morning, council members and other guests. Appreciate it. I have one announcement, and that's also that Aurora Reservoir, our swim area, will be open beginning tomorrow. So if you want to come dip your toes in some really cold water, come out to the reservoir. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. And I think Lauren is going to make that a little bigger. Oh, there he is. All right. You could just go to presentation mode. We get a lot of questions from citizens this time of year, and of course all through the summer, and about how we maintain open space and parks in general. And so I want to specifically talk about how we maintain open space in the city of Aurora. So next slide, please. So Aurora Open Space and Natural Resources Division manages Aurora's open space, and we manage those to, for people to explore Aurora's true nature. Next slide, please. So our open space natural areas provide ecosystem services as well as mental and physical health benefits essential to our citizens and the environment. This is kind of a review slide from a presentation I did before. It talks about the fact that we steward these natural areas that provide access to nature for residents and that provide habitat for wildlife and plants and pollinators, and there's many benefits of open space to the citizens of the city of Aurora. Our wetlands provide reduction in flood risk, improve water quality, and our prairies sequester carbon, fight climate change, support pollinators and birds and provide unique experiences for the citizens of Aurora. I mean, where else, what other city can you go see pronghorn, painted turtles, things like that in natural areas that are managed by the city? So some common citizen questions relate to, we have requests that people want us to remove this tree or that tree, or remove a fallen tree, for example, or dead trees. And that's something we have to explain, that that's part of that ecosystem, and we make sure that we're trying to teach people and help them understand why we would leave a dead tree, because it provides habitat for nesting birds, it provides forage area for insects that live under the bark of trees that woodpeckers eat, things like that. So we try to do a really good job of educating people when they call with a request. Another request is, often we get people that are used to mowed turf areas and kind of expect that kind of treatment maybe in an open space and natural area, and we don't typically mow native grasses except where absolutely necessary. Next slide, please. So these open spaces and natural areas provide essential services that our citizens love, and most of our citizens love and can't live without. In fact, additional open space is one of the highest requested things in our master plan our processes, where we're surveying the public and asking what they want. And they want more open spaces and more trails. We have over 100 miles of trails that we maintain through Aurora's natural areas. There are open spaces within a maximum of 3 miles of every Aurora home. We have approximately 8,000 acres of open space. We manage 3 nature centers that are spread across the city, and we provide just an incredible wide variety of environmental education program, including nature camps, half-day camps in the summer, as well as during the breaks between the school, like the Christmas break and spring break. And most of the programs that we provide are at low or no cost to citizens, and that's very important to that mission from the Arapahoe County Open Space Tax and the Adams County Open Space Tax, to extend these programs to citizens at very low cost. These areas also provide citizens access to natural areas throughout the city that provide meaningful connections to nature, and it's been proven over and over and over that that's very important to people's mental and physical health. Next slide, please. So we have a natural resources staff that work hard every year and year-round to provide care to these spaces that are essential to our citizens and the environment. We strive to provide safe, fun, healthy outdoor recreation spaces. We work to maintain our trails, fight invasive species, maintain facilities, and just manage the land. We kind of consider ourselves, our maintenance staff and our volunteers, we have a huge volunteer program. Consider ourselves nature's support team. We're trying to help it along. So next slide, Lauren. This is one of the things that I communicate to citizens when they call and ask for things that may be something we can or can't do. But the natural areas in the city of Aurora are protected in the code. So Aurora Code Section 142-76 says the following areas in the city are deemed to be natural areas, and these areas shall receive limited maintenance. And the maximum height limitation contained within this article, so it's within the vegetation article, which also has the code references in there to heights. Like, so I have some citizens that will call and say, well, I got a code notice because I had weeds in my front yard that were too tall and I had to mow them. So that's their reference point. And I have to explain that, well, that section doesn't apply to natural areas because we have varying different heights of natural vegetation that we try to maintain. So it can't be the same as your yard. So this helps to explain that to some people. So next slide, please. So what do we do? Well, our staff does monthly inspections we try to do monthly inspections. We come pretty close to doing a monthly inspection of every open space that we maintain. And we look at the amenities that are in that space. We look at the sidewalks, the fences, signs. We look for tree and shrub hazards, and we're very careful to look for noxious and nuisance weeds. From those inspections, repairs and treatments are planned for the next, the next few weeks while we are catching up on what we found in the monthly inspections. In addition to that, all the trash cans that we have along the trails are monitored and emptied every week. So that's something that's done once per week. Litter pickup along trails and in open space areas kind of happens monthly in conjunction with those monthly inspections. If there's an area that's particularly has a lot of litter, it may require that we set up a volunteer project and work through a larger area that way. We mow vegetation along sidewalks and public right-of-way when it's obstructing travel. So it's not something we just do routinely, like every Monday or something like that, or every 2 Mondays. It's something that happens, we base it on what we're seeing out there and when it is necessary. Trying to conserve fuel and equipment and that kind of thing. So we do some plantings. We reseed areas that are barren. We do that when we only use native species in open space to try to improve habitat and not contribute to invasive species problem. So additionally, on a quarterly basis, we inspect every mile of our trails and all of our bridges and our trailhead parking areas. Our ranger staff help with that twice a year. They do the inspections, 2 of those quarters, the rangers do the inspections, and 2 of the quarters, the maintenance staff do those inspections. And that gives kind of a separate set of eyes. Sometimes one group sees things differently than the other, and it kind of helps us to balance our approach to looking for safety hazards and those kinds of things along trails and in our bridges and things like that.
Councilmember Medina.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Murillo.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. I had a quick question on the inspection. So
Sure.
we have the Sand Creek Greenway in the district. And I'm assuming it's not your charge to do the maintenance of that particular greenway, but well, I guess can you clarify who's in charge of the
Yes.
maintenance?
So the Sand Creek Regional Greenway Trail through Aurora is 100% maintained by our staff.
Okay.
The Greenway Foundation, they provide some help in terms of they set up some volunteer opportunities.
Okay.
And they do work that way. But they are, in terms of the actual maintenance that needs done, that's our staff.
Okay, and then I guess on that end, what is the plan for, like, I think the quarterly inspections are really great, just from like a general maintenance and upkeep, but after the most recent like rain events, I mean,
Good
it's
point.
what does that look like? I mean,
Yeah.
I walk my dogs there very often, and with all of the water that's gone, it displaced a significant amount of trash and plastic right on the river bank, the creek bank, if you will. And I'm curious if there's a plan to address that from a, just a management standpoint or volunteer opportunities. I think, it's great because it's really green and luscious, but it's also very concerning, and it's just hanging out there the whole way through.
Yeah, so there is some partnered maintenance in an area like that. So the Stormwater Division manages things that are within the floodway itself. So they would likely do some trash pickup, and we also do it like where it came out of its banks and deposited stuff pretty high. That's an area that we would pick up. So we're currently doing that post event. We kind of do when something like that happens where we have 3 or 4 days of rain and lots of erosion and those types of things as well. We're out doing additional inspections and trying to plan for those kinds of activities. We've done a lot of trail repair this week so like, for example, the Plains Trail that goes all along Plains Conservation Center on the outside, that's a soft surface trail, had a lot of erosion. Spring Hill Trail through this event from the Beck Rec Center all the way down to Coal Creek Arena has a lot of washouts and things that we're beginning to repair this week. And we kind of work our way through the system doing those repairs, and then the trash pickup will probably follow that when we have the availability of time. In addition to looking at, can we set up a volunteer opportunity to motivate more people, because that's a really good project for volunteers to help with. Everybody can understand, and it's pretty easy to stand up a volunteer project for trash pickup.
Okay.
So
I
that's
hope
our
you'll give
plan.
us I hope you'll give us some notice. I think that
Sure.
especially like the residents along the Sand Creek that are just like their homes kind of abut the trail, I think would be very motivated to get that cleaned up and you know, I guess the larger community as well. But I know I've heard some complaints from folks and you know, I think they understand, but it is pretty jarring just to see like the how awesome the tall grass is now, you know, with all the water, but then also there's like plastic and trash and all kinds of stuff just like interwoven into it, and
Yeah.
it's really jarring to see, but that's really good to know that there's like a post event analysis. And you know, I hear you on prioritizing the trail and that the trash pickup might be a last priority, but I know I'd be willing to support and share that out too.
Let me see what we can do. Yeah, that's kind of, we're in that, still that phase of just trying to get the safety things handled first, like the big gullies and washouts on the soft surface trails like Sand Creek Greenway, Spring Hill, and
Yeah.
Plains Trail.
If you have any sense of timeline, I have a town hall and then a recess during the summer. Wanted to just like tee that up. Like in this time frame, we'll do cleanup and we'll email you all, if you want to participate, we'll email you the details kind of thing. But if you don't have a timeline, that's okay.
Right now, I don't. I say we're still kind of assessing things. This is still in that. We're still, but we can definitely reach out to you first and foremost when we get to that point, if that works for you.
Yeah, no, whatever the process
Okay.
looks like, I'm here to help and support.
Thank you very much. Brooke, I saw you turn your camera on. Did you have a comment or was that okay?
Thank you. I guess I'm so obvious. Thank you. I'll reach out to the citywide volunteer coordinator as well, Councilmember Murillo, and get their thoughts as well. And Brian has a wonderful citizens group. It's their Open Space Advisory Board. Might be a great thing for them to focus on as well. So, and they put extraordinary volunteer hours in. Last year, Brian, I think it was over 6,000 volunteer hours
6,000.
from that advisory group.
Well,
And that's equivalent to 3 full-time employees. And so they love to volunteer and they may have some ideas as well. So let us do a little, as Brian said, let's do a little research. I'll be at your town hall meeting tonight. It's not something we can address it tonight, but could you give us maybe 2 weeks to touch base with these different groups and see what the availability and interest would be. I also want to talk to Jessica Bixman. She's on the call, but often we get requests from corporations who want to do some type of an event as well. So let me see where I haven't heard anything lately, but let me see where we're at.
Awesome. And just to add to that list of folks to reach out to, I would add the Food Justice Northwest Aurora team. I think they're all about food access, food sovereignty, and being able to have an environment where there's a clean place for vegetation to grow. Even though it's not like food crops or anything,
Yeah.
I think would probably be a pretty strong nexus for the team. And there's a bunch of folks part of the steering committee, like Village Exchange Center, like all of the big, larger nonprofits, Aurora-based nonprofits, also Denver Urban Gardens that could simultaneously engage as part of the steering committee as well. So might get some bang for your buck in reaching out to the Food Justice Northwest Aurora team.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Excuse me, and just to add to that, Councilmember Murillo, I'll be meeting with Mo Fair, who's on the Denver side of Sand Creek tomorrow for a function there, so I can certainly pitch that question to them as well.
yeah, and they have responsibility, across the jurisdictions, and so they try to put together groups, in Denver, Commerce City, and Aurora. The Sand Creek Greenway Foundation, Mo Fair that you mentioned, they recently have been involved in working in Sand Creek Park. We have a pollinator garden that is a cooperative effort between their group and ours. So anyway, yes, lots of mess, and Sand Creek gets it the worst because it's downstream from everything else. So everything that gets picked up gets carried that way, and it's just it ends up there. So we have a lot of that throughout the city. So anything else, or should I continue?
Yeah, Brian, if I can jump in.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. So I wanted to ask, follow up on the trash and litter collection frequency. Is that high enough currently? Because this is a complaint that I get from Ward 4 residents around Tollgate Creek and some of our other open spaces at times. So
Yeah, I would echo their sentiment that no, it's not. It's not frequently enough. It's just as thin as we're stretched. I mean, that's the maximum we can do is what we've got in our kind of in our protocol now. We don't even always hit that because of things like this. A rain event will happen for 3 days or 4 days, and then we get diverted into fixing erosion on the trails, and so that may delay and set back that normal litter pickup and trash collection for a couple weeks. So yeah, this is kind of in the best case scenario.
yeah,
at this
would it be
point.
possible for you or Brooke to kind of let us know what an ideal situation looks like for you all with regards to frequency and staffing and what that might cost? I think that's probably the direction that Councilor Murillo was going in with her comment in chat.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Joshua has a question, but is not sure how to unmute.
I actually did figure it out. Is it okay if I
Wonderful.
ask?
Councilmember Medina, would you entertain a question from Joshua?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I live right by the Aurora, by the Jewel Preserve, and I noticed similar things like that where there is trash being left around. However, I also see where there is a problem. I've seen sometimes when I'm walking my dog at night, homeless people that are in there and sleeping and camping out. We live very close to a school. I've actually seen one naked bathing in the middle. It was really obscene and crazy to see. But it's something that needs to be addressed. And after talking with several police officers, there's literally nothing that they can do unless there's a trespassing sign. So if on open spaces, it was clarified that there's a trespassing sign that says you're not allowed to be there from certain hours, or that, you're allowed to walk your dog, but you're specifically not allowed to camp out and leave trash, then the police can actually do something, and the resources that we pay for in taxes can be used to solve this problem. And there'll be less trash, less issues, less risks to people that want to go and enjoy these open spaces.
Thank you, Josh. Yes,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Was that for me to respond to, Councilman Medina?
I think it's you or any of us.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Josh. Jewel Wetland is one of the areas that we patrol the most, and we have a lot of engagement there with the police, just like you mentioned. The park's rule sign is stated in 3 places at Jewel Wetland that the hours are from dawn to dusk. So anyone in there past that time can be made to leave by the police department, and the camping is prohibited citywide. So those rules, those ordinances exist. It is a difficult thing to enforce 100% of the time. We patrol there, at least currently we've been patrolling there. We had some issues from other residents, and Councilmember Marcano is well aware that we've been patrolling at least twice a day with the ranger staff, and then we've engaged police as much as we can, outside of those times. So just to let you know, we are aware, and we're working to affect change. It does difficult. There's also a very motivated citizen group around Jewel Wetland that also informs us. We get calls on a nearly every other day, so for that report and try to help us pinpoint areas that we need to patrol and where the problems may be. So thank you for your comment, Josh, and that's just a little explanation of what we are doing. It's very complicated. It's not easy, but thank you.
Any other comments, council members? Any members? Not?
Okay, Lauren, let's move on. But please, thanks for the questions, everybody. Appreciate it. Back to natural area maintenance protocol. This is kind of a slide about tree and shrub maintenance. Our first priority is noxious and nuisance invasive species. We try to treat and or remove those. Of course, they've established themselves over the last 50 years, and so that's another thing that we can't get to all of them. We, in terms of one of our priorities this year, is a project with volunteers for, Mile High Youth Corps, where we engage their Sawyer crews to help us with Russian olive removals, and we're targeting Quincy Reservoir as an area that we are trying to eliminate all the Russian olives around there because they're very invasive. They take space. They don't provide habitat that the native trees, the cottonwoods and willows and things like that do. So that's where our focus is in terms of trees. And we also look at trees and shrubs that are causing obstructions. So if there's a tree or a shrub that is causing an obstruction to a trail, or hanging over a fence, a neighbor's fence, and could possibly fall on their shed or something, those are ones that we work to remove. Dead trees, we first evaluate them to see if we look at that tree and say, well, is it a dead tree that could fall on someone's house? That's different than a dead tree standing out in the middle of a field or along a creek corridor. Those are left because they're extremely important for wildlife habitat and insect populations and all the other pieces of the ecosystem. So when we plant trees in open space, we only plant native species. We plant mainly cottonwood and willow along creek corridors where they're likely to survive. We don't plant trees in the upland areas because the Colorado Plains ecosystem just doesn't support trees in the upland areas. So we're a city on the edge of the prairie. So next slide, please. Big concern that people have this year, Councilmember Murillo mentioned tall grass and the things like that, and it starts to get people thinking about wildfire. And so this is the time of year when we're thinking about it as well. And what we're able to do is we focus on providing a fuel break behind residential homes that have combustible fences that back up to natural areas. So it's kind of a three-pronged criteria. So where there are residential homes with combustible fence types that back up to natural areas, we focus on those areas and we try to provide a fuel break behind them in this short window between when the grass emerges and grows really fast and then dries out. It's kind of a typical pattern for Colorado. So we work really hard on it in the weeks leading up to the 4th of July because that's about the right time for the grass to be starting to cure out. And it's also the right time when all the fireworks stands go up and people start buying things that are dangerous for all of us. So anyway, next slide, please. So there you can see there's one mower width task made behind these homes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the scope of this, and then also the considerations, some other considerations of these fuel breaks. It's really a pretty small measure that we can provide that actually helps if there was a fire in the open space, that it's a spot where the flames would lay down and be a lot more easy to be attacked by firefighters. So one of the costs of that, as you can see in this photograph right up against the fence, you see the white little flowering vines that are crawling up the fence. That's bindweed. That does really, really well when you mow the grass down and it's not shaded anymore and it gets lots of sunshine. And so we end up kind of have to balance this effort with controlling this noxious weed as well. So next slide, please. So when you apply those three criteria, you get a lot of area that needs a fuel break. And this is kind of just a zoom in on a city enough to see those orange lines are all the areas that meet that criteria within this little section of the city. Of course, our scope is citywide, but this just kind of illustrates it. Next slide, please. So some of the considerations, it's a pretty incredibly labor-intensive and costly effort to do these fuel breaks. It takes us 14 to 21 days putting all of our hands on that we have available, and which gets difficult when we're having a hard time hiring those positions. We're heavily reliant on seasonal positions. seasonal maintenance workers to do this kind of work. It's really labor intensive. And those positions are largely unfilled. We're having a hard time filling those positions. It also consumes a large amount of fuel and a large amount of our equipment repair budget, because this is kind of an area that, well, you never know what someone may have thrown over their fence. So we check the best we can before we mow, but we're often hitting something that got thrown over the fence, logs, fuel, trash, whatever. It also leads to those more weedy areas immediately behind that homes, which then kind of tends to be another complaint. Well, you mowed this area, and now I've got goat heads, bindweed, whatever. I've got weeds. Now we have to go deal with that. So there's also the potential that we could, in our operation, start a fire. That has happened. Spark from a rock, a mower blade hitting a rock, or a spark from an exhaust pipe or something could start a fire. So there's a balance. We have to, like, we try to, if it gets too dry, there may be a point where it would be more harmful than good for us to be out there. So we have to be really careful about that. These little fuel breaks, if the fire's creeping along, they make a really good place where the fire lays down. What they don't do a very good job of, and nothing does a good job of this, is if you have high winds like we saw with the Marshall Fire or something like that, where embers were becoming airborne and embers are casting across long distances and accumulating in other places. So these fuel breaks do provide first responders with the spot that they can draw a line and they can get in there. It also helps them with being able to quickly make their way along the back of these areas if they need to lay a hose line or if they need to do whatever. We are very beneficial. It's very beneficial that we have such an advanced firefighting fire department. They are well spread across the city. There's fire stations. There's 17 fire stations across the city. So no one is more than just a couple minutes from a fire station. So that's a very big benefit for us. Next slide, please. I have one example I'd like to show because this is one of my favorite examples, because it's not from somewhere else. It's not from California. It's not from whatever. Here's an Aurora example. So in this picture, you see on the very right-hand side of the picture is cattails along Side Creek. Then we have a mowed area going right to left. Then there's a little mowed area next to the path. Then there's a 10-foot wide concrete path. And then there's the irrigated bluegrass lawn of the housing development there, the townhome community. So that provides this really wide, much broader area than we can provide most of the time from the dry vegetation on the right to the homes. Seems like this would be a firefighter's dream. No way this is ever going to catch on fire. So I'm going to show you the next slide. And this was the result of a fire that someone flicked a cigarette butt out into the open space cattails. They started on fire, and it came across an ember came across the sidewalk, and then it creeped up this dry irrigated grass because it was early March. They hadn't really turned on the irrigation system yet, and it creeped up there. And what it caught fire was that juniper that was planted at the foundation line of this townhome. Next slide, please. And so in the best situation here prior to the fire, this would have been a place where I thought there was a very, very little risk. But the fire crept up this dry grass, and then when it got to that, right in the very center of that picture, you can see the skeleton of that juniper. There's basically like standing gasoline. And so even where we had this entirely wide fire break, the fact that a fire got to that juniper then caused this townhome to catch fire. So next slide, please. So it really, for me, brings home, Lauren, you have the next slide, how much more important what's right next to the building is versus what's out away from the building. So here, this community has all these foundation plantings that were planted probably 30 years ago. When they were on the site plan, they were a little tiny plant next to the building, but they've grown and they're right next to these wooden decks, right next to the foundations of these homes. So that's a risk. So the next slide, please. We read a lot about the wildfire research, and it shows that the most devastating fires result from a domino effect where the private home and homeowner's landscape are the primary fuel leading to the fires or feeding a fire spread. And this leads us to understand that fire hardening in the homeowner controlled space is invaluable and necessary. This has been seen in Oregon, California, Boulder, Colorado. The communities are vulnerable even in areas that are not considered to be in the wildland urban interface. This is all information from the Sightline Institute. They looked at over 40,000 structures that were impacted by fire or contacted by fire, and they evaluated which ones burned and which ones didn't, and led to some of this research. So the next slide, please. So this is information that I share with homeowners when they ask, or anyone that when they ask about, the wildfire risk to Aurora. If we want to rein in the runaway wildfire suppression costs and the mounting community damages, Aurora, for example, needs a new approach to living with wildfires. The old paradigm of dealing with wildfires by suppressing them can no longer protect homes. It never worked to nurture healthy forests and natural areas, and we can't afford it anyway. Bottom line is, we can't make every landscape or every open space fireproof, but we can focus on the home ignition zone and the stuff that the research has shown is the most important thing. So the next slide, please. So this is me on my soapbox saying we really need to, Lauren, the next slide, or is it just slow? It might just be slow to catch up with me, but that 0 to 5 feet out from everyone's home is the most important thing. And this checklist on the next slide just talks about the things that can be done to, the goal for this zone is to prevent the flames from coming in direct contact with the structure. We need to use non-flammable hard surface materials such as rock, gravel, sand, cement, bare earth, or stone. So there's critical steps that anyone can follow with their home or their dwelling that keep everything away from just that 5 feet, just 5 feet from the home. Next slide, please, Lauren. I'll share this with you guys too. So all that research leads to the fact that 0 to 5 feet around the home is the most important thing, and it's completely in control of that homeowner and that resident. And these simple fixes can prevent 90% of home ignitions. Embers that are cast ahead of a fire are what causes 90% of the home ignitions. So that's where I feel like, all this research leads to, that's the most important thing. And this was those 40,000 structures. I don't know that we have time for the YouTube video, but let's just go to the next slide. I don't want to monopolize this too much. But this is a slide. The next slide is a picture of the research that they did on homes where they actually built a little home inside a research facility, and they burned materials behind us here, and they blew those embers just like a wildfire would blow them up against a house. And the half of the house on the right is built the way they're describing. That 5 feet is rock. There's no mulch up against the house. It's not shingles for siding. It's got double pane windows. It's got asphalt roofing. And the one on the right has mulch and pine needles and stuff up next to the building. And of course, it burned. The obvious from the picture, it burned, and the other one didn't. The next slide, please. So their tagline is "Remember the Ember." Up to 90% of wildfire home ignitions start from embers. And if we can keep combustibles away, maintain your home's defensible space, and get your neighbors to do the same, we can prevent 90% of all wildfire homes. Because it's an important thing for us as a community is to keep that first house from catching fire. So once that first house catches fire in a wind-driven event, it's going to catch the next houses on fire. So that's kind of where I'm at. Let's see, what's the next slide? The next slide is just make sure we had a little time for questions. We had some questions in the middle, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. But there's some links on here to the disastersafety.org and also sightline.org, which was the research into those 40,000 structures. And then they'll link to that YouTube video, which shows that research project with the embers against it. So, council members, any questions?
All right, council members, committee members, Murillo, Marcano, you got any questions?
And I'm gonna look at the chat here too. So
No
No
additional ones from me at this point.
Yep, I was like, I asked mine already, so I'm good. Thank you for your dialogue and thorough response, Brian and
okay,
Brooke.
you're welcome.
Joshua, did you get your question answered?
Lauren, is Joshua unmuted so he may speak? Is he still with us?
Yes, I'm
Joshua
still with
is
you.
here. Yes, he's unmuted now.
Hi, Josh.
Brooke, thank you for your response. I was actually drafting out an email for you.
Great, thank you.
All right, no questions from me, I guess. Thank you, Brian, for the
Thank you,
presentation,
everybody.
good information, and as we come into the season, so we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to mitigate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, move on to the next agenda item, which is Recreation Summer Youth Program updates.
Just need 1 minute to pull that up.
Okay.
Good morning, Council. This is Joe Sack. I'm introducing our acting youth services superintendent, Donna Hunt, and she's going to guide us through our presentation today and our plan for We Are Aurora Youth Summer 2023.
Morning, council members and other guests. Thank you for introducing me, Joe. And yes, I'm going to bring to you the We Are Aurora Youth program that we are going to be doing this summer for 2023. You go ahead and advance it, Lauren. So we tried to start this in 2022 in the summer with the idea of a free youth admission for 13 to 19-year-olds, 12 to 8 o'clock, Monday through Friday at Central and Moorhead. And doing like a breakout, like 12 to 5 monitored gym activities, 5 to 8 adding additional activities, including like crafts, actual sports and stuff like that. And our capacity, we were anticipating 100 youth per location. And then we partnered with Aurora Public Schools Nutrition, Snacks, and Meals. The first part did not happen due to staffing issues and just we couldn't get it off the ground and stuff at that point, but we did do the meals, excluded the city holidays and stuff like that for the meals. But we considered, it was considered at that time, but we did put that on pause just because of the staffing issues. Next slide, please. In 2022 free youth program accomplishments, we did actually have free access to Moorhead and Central and esports during winter and spring breaks. Again, we weren't able to do the free summer program and stuff, but we did do the food program service. We ran that with the staff that we had in place for the summer. We were very successful. We had 136,000 meals and snacks that were served in the summer of 2022 with Aurora Public Schools help and our help as city staff. APS purchased some food trucks and they delivered to our parks, libraries, and pools, and they set up their food trucks there. And then we also delivered to multiple recreation centers, Moorhead, Central, and the libraries as well. Central Rec served approximately 50 meals. Moorhead was about 35. By the end, they kept going up and up. And so we adjusted as we went through the program for the summer. So we were at like 100 at the end of the summer for Central. 5 summer camps also served meals to our students and our youth that were in our programs, about 200 per day. So that was a huge amount going out to our families. And from 2 to 6 is when our hot meals were served at Central and Moorhead. We found that the hot meals were a lot more received by our youth than the cold meals and stuff. So that was really popular, and the youth would come into the centers to get those. And our City of Aurora staff were excited to hand those out. Next slide, please. And this is just a slide that kind of breaks down our spring break this year for 2023 and compares it to 2022. In 2022, we did have 853 youth that participated in the spring at Central and 587 in the spring of this year. Moorhead was 265, and then it went up to 295 this year. And then Southeast just opened this year. So our first, we only have 2023 to talk about. And so that's 383 youth that participated in the program. The difference is that in 2022, we had 19-year-olds and younger that were allowed into the program. And then in 2023, we did 18 and younger. We found that the 19-year-olds were like dominating the courts, kind of taking over, and our younger youth that we were trying to touch and, you know, get involved in stuff, they were kind of sitting off to the side. So we figured if we could get to the younger youth, hopefully we could really entice them into playing sports, learning how to share and care for each other and stuff like that. 19-year-olds were more dominating, like, this is our court. So it was hard to work with that age group together. So we kind of based it a little bit smaller and just 13 to 18, taking the teen years for that. We did have Cronky Sports come out. So the Denver Nuggets Basketball Academy came out and they did some camps with our kids. So Moorhead had 52 and Central had 48. That's not in these numbers, but that was just a special event on the side. And then esports, we did free entry there as well. And we'll do that again this summer. Highlights, the structure program for 2023 seemed to have worked much better, and staff felt safer by having more structured activities, more control over, you know, programming that was going on. And the youth, it was really neat to see like the outlier youth that weren't normally involved. They actually got involved. We did arts and crafts. We had cooking programs. We had 3v3 basketball. We had a lot of things going on, volleyball and things like that. So the youth had a lot of opportunity to do a lot of different things, and that's what we want to move forward with. Next slide. So for this summer, we'd like to propose 13 to 18 for our ages, times noon to 7, days Monday through Friday. Dates starting next week, May 30th to August 4th. Free esports admissions at Expo, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4:30 to 7:30, and organized activities 1 day a week at each center. So we would have staff doing all those programs I just mentioned on certain days, and I'll show you more on that next slide. But the program cost is approximately $30,000 for supplies and staffing, and then about $55,000 that we'll lose in the revenue that normally is generated by our youth.
Councilmember Medina, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Donna. How do we handle, so, you know, the age range is 13 to 18. How do we, if at all, handle when there's a family with younger kids? Or, you know, I guess I'm wondering, is there ever, do we offer the opportunity for like younger siblings to join if they meet that age range, or do we just, it's only through that age range period?
We're trying to stay based on this age range, but we do have 12-year-olds that come with their 18-year-old sibling and stuff like that, and we won't turn them away.
Okay. What if it's a few years outside of that 13 age range? I just, you know, like, I don't know how close siblings are, but is it just within a couple of years, or is it just it depends kind of situation? I'm just trying to figure out how to give my constituents direction if this moves forward, if I've gotten questions like that before.
Sure. We are trying to keep the structure piece for the 13 to 18 just because that's a huge gap already in age, just to kind of define what projects we're doing and stuff. But we had families come in over spring break, and so the families, you know, would go swimming and then they'd come in. We let them do our arts and crafts with us or things like that. So we are open, you know, and stuff. It's yeah, it's not a hard sell and stuff for us. We want to be there for the youth. We're excited to get the youth into our programs.
Awesome. That's really good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Questions? Not? Go ahead. Move
Okay,
forward.
next slide. All right. We are Aurora Youth Program. So this is what I was kind of talking about in the last slide. We're going to organize activities one day a week at each of our large centers that we're running this program. So Mondays we'll focus on Central, Tuesdays at Moorhead, and Wednesdays at Southeast. Activities are like minute to win games, cooking, 3v3, gym activities, movie nights, providing other structured activities. We're going to run the first 2 weeks kind of like a planned schedule. And then my staff is very good at working with youth. So we kind of will see what the norm is, what they're really wanting and stuff like that, and be flexible with our following weeks and stuff like that. So, so it's kind of a light schedule at first, and then we'll keep popping that in. And I'll put in the chat, it's auroragov.org/youth that you can watch what our activities are and stuff. And so we'll add those in our calendars and stuff like that of any events that will get added into the program. So we'll have gym supervisors or organizing activities, structured activities, monitoring open gyms, helping with snack, looking around, just kind of making sure, you know, youth are being active in our programs. We want them to be engaged. And so just, you know, it was really neat over spring break to have the opportunity to talk to the youth that we didn't normally get a chance to talk to as they were doing activities. And I think it's, in the long run, if you look at the full picture, I think this is a huge, you learn through play and you teach through play and stuff. So it's a win-win for both, I think, all of the city of Aurora and stuff with this program. Hot meals will be offered Monday through Friday from 2 to 6 at the recreation centers. We're partnering with Aurora Public Schools food service program. The neat thing that they're doing for us this year is Domino's Pizza is going to be delivering pizzas on Thursdays to our youth. So they'll be having that for their meals. We have special events lined up. That includes the 5-0 trailer that's coming out to all to Central, Moorhead, and Southeast. And we'll have 16 visits from the 5-0 trailer, which is a gaming trailer. And that was pretty popular on our breaks and stuff that we had before. Cronky Sports is going to come out on June 30th. Moorhead, they'll be there from 10 to 11, and Central from 2:30 to 3:30. And they'll have up to about 50 to 60 youth. We'll have that pre-sign up again and stuff where they'll sign up to be in the, it's a camp, and they'll come out and do hockey with us. So the Avalanche will come out and do hockey with our youth. So that's going to be fun and exciting for our youth this time. Last 2 times we've done basketball, so the Nuggets camp came out. APS and City of Aurora collaborate this summer. We're going to have 3 rec centers. It'll be Central, Moorhead, and Southeast. Then we'll have the food program. We'll have 14 pools and parks that will have the food program, 4 libraries, and 5 of our summer camps. And currently I'm getting a flyer put together for the times. So that should be done, I'm hoping tomorrow. We'll have the first draft tomorrow for that, so we could get that out to everybody. Next slide. Any questions?
Any questions of the committee? Councilmember Murillo, Marcano?
I don't have a question, but I am very excited to see this moving forward. I know that we had discussed, and I think actually there's one more slide in our backup that shows one of the programs that we discussed during the budget workshop last year that we couldn't make happen. But I think this is a really good step, and I think a lot of our residents are going to really appreciate it, especially my constituents in Ward 4 around Overland and that area. So it's something I've been asking for some time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Murillo?
No additional questions. Also, just echo Councilmember Marcano's sentiments. Really excited and super happy to see a lot of this being contemplated and coming to fruition. If we can help disseminate, all this stuff, at my town hall this weekend. So I hope that I know that we'll have Brooke and others from the department. So hopefully they can make some announcements on some of these upcoming things. Yeah, I'm excited to see this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Don, I just have a quick question. I know, did we stop giving food out at Expo in Meadowood?
Yes, out Meadowood, we're gonna do it out in the park.
Okay.
And let me see if Expo's on here. Expo is not on here. They went there last year, but it wasn't one of the popular stops. So they kind of adjusted to the popular areas and stuff of where they had the most traction, and they're trying a few different locations this year.
All right. Well, thank you. No, I'm glad to see that the food programs continue from my days at Morehead, and I'm glad to see that the city has embraced that as a vital piece, because I think that also brings youth out that may need that food assistance throughout the summer months as well. So thank you, Donna, for everything you do. And I know you do a great job, and thank your staff as well. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate that too.
Councilmember Medina?
Yes, ma'am.
I also, well, thank you to Donna as well. She does an extraordinary job, and we do appreciate her. I also want to make a comment about the food programs, which I find just wonderful with regard to Aurora Public Schools. They will not turn away children, and they will not, and if they see a child who may want more, they will give them more meals. And there's no questions asked, and they make the food available. And it's cooked in their kitchens, it's fresh, and it's popular. And so these kids, they will drive their trucks around, sit in the parks for a while, waiting for the kids to get out there. We'll have, as Donna said, flyers in Spanish and English, and we'll make sure we get that information out, and certainly would appreciate the help from the city council as well. So we'll get that out to everybody is here in the, I think, the next week. So thank you.
No, thank you, Brooke. No, it's a good program. I think it's helped us to connect better with our community as well. So I certainly appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's time.
All right. So next up is renaming a portion of Spring Hill Park, associated with Freedom Memorial.
Good morning, council members and guests. My name is Nicole Ankeny, and I'm the manager of planning, design, and construction. And I'm going to apologize up front. I'm a little bit sick. I was out sick yesterday, so I'm hoping my voice holds up through this entire presentation. Luckily, I have Rick Crandall on the call as well, and he will jump in if my voice starts to fail, I think. So we are here today to discuss renaming a portion of Spring Hill Park. Next slide, please. So you may recall last August, we presented a project to you with the Visitors and Education Center at the Colorado Freedom Memorial. The intent is that it's to be a gathering place to honor, educate, and remember the price paid for freedom and pay tribute to the 6,218 Colorado veterans killed in action. It will also teach future generations about service and sacrifice, as well as host public programs presented by Buckley Space Force Base, Aurora Chamber Defense Council, many historians, authors, and distinguished visitors. Next slide, please. So Spring Hill Park is a community park, and it is north of East 6th Avenue and just east of North Airport Boulevard. Next slide, please. This is a close-up image of the Spring Hill Park. It's about 29.3 acres. It contains a playground. It's also got the Beck Recreation Center and indoor pool. It provides access to the Highline Canal Trail as well as the Sand Creek Greenway Trail. Also has the Colorado Freedom Memorial, which has restroom and resorbable picnic shelter, and of course is adjacent to the Spring Hill Golf Course. Next slide, please. So we are proposing to rename the southern portion, which would be essentially the area that is contained within one Arapahoe County parcel. The area around the Colorado Freedom Memorial is about 5.5 acres. This intent is to distinguish the memorial area from the remainder of the park. As part of the visitor center, we will be required to go through a master plan amendment. Next slide, please. And then just to clarify, the area to the north would still remain as Spring Hill Park. This area is about, once we separate the two, would still have a little, almost 24 acres and would still contain the playground, the recreation facility, and the access to the Highline Canal Trail, as well as the Sand Creek Greenway. As part of that master plan amendment process, we would go ahead and separate the two parks and update both of those all at the same time. Next slide, please. Thank you. This image you see before you is the current master plan for the northern portion of Spring Hill Park that would need to be amended. Next slide, please. So as you're all aware, the city does have a policy and procedure to name city-owned parks, and that is done through our resolution number R93-37. A name may be submitted by the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board through the city manager's office to City Council for approval. The PRO staff did receive a recommendation from Rick through the Colorado Freedom Memorial Foundation. Next slide, please. And we are proposing the name of Memorial Park. The area of the park obviously contains the Freedom Memorial and, of course, the future Visitor and Education Center. And you may recall back at the end of January, the City Council unanimously voted to approve Resolution R 2023-10, stating the Colorado Freedom Memorial Foundation's goals in the construction of the Colorado Freedom Memorial Center and Spring Hill Community Park, and authorized staff to continue to collaborate with the Colorado Freedom Memorial Foundation in adherence to city codes and policies. And then on May 3rd, staff took this proposal to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. They unanimously approved the name, and we are here today. Next slide, please. So the question before you today is, does the committee wish to advance Memorial Park as the name for the southern portion of Spring Hill Park associated with the Colorado Freedom Memorial, also known as Arapahoe County Parcel 1975-04-4-10-001 for City Council's consideration? And I would also ask Rick if he would like to speak.
You never have to worry about asking a radio guy if he wants to speak. I'll tell you that. That's never been a problem. I love that. Maybe that should be the new name. Parcel 1975-04. Wow, that'd be a really great. No, just to follow up, and I want to thank Nicole and Brooke and the team for holding my hand and guiding me through all these different meetings and things we need to tend to do all of this properly. Frankly, the idea of this being Memorial Park, now that we have actually 3 monuments there, the Colorado Freedom Memorial and the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument, and the granite pillars that we call Home's Embrace, it really has become a memorial park. And then with the future addition of the Visitor and Education Center, it just adds to that. And we found on the policy committee that there were a couple of members who had yet to be at the Colorado Freedom Memorial, and they looked up Memorial Park on Google to try to find where it was at. So people are leading us that way as well. Memorial Park just seems to be the Colorado Freedom Memorial at Memorial Park in Aurora just sounds really, I just think it has a real dignity to it. And so I think we're doing it for all the right reasons. And I have appreciated the support so far. And yeah, we're excited about the opportunity for it to be Memorial Park.
All right, with that, council members, committee members, Murillo, Marcano, any questions?
No questions, but I support moving forward.
The questions, I think it makes sense to do. And I'm glad we don't have to call this park by its government name. My God.
Looks like it's unanimous on my end as well, and we look forward to approving this name change and moving on forward. So thank you again, Nicole. Sorry about your voice, but you did a great job. And thank you, Mr. Crandall, for your support as usual for veterans. So we appreciate that.
No, thank you. And if I could, Councilmember Medina, just to throw in before I wrap up, I want to acknowledge the Jess Bixenman, who's on the call, and the special events team for all the work they're engaged in right now with us for our event on Saturday. They're true partners in this event. As is all of pros. The maintenance team was out yesterday with us, making sure the site was prepped and looking as good as possible for the event Saturday to represent Aurora well. And it's just, it's always been fun working with them. We've always had a great time together. And I wanted to let you guys know how grateful we are at the Colorado Freedom Memorial for that.
Oh, thank you. All right, now we'll move on to the next piece, which is miscellaneous matters for consideration. Anyone? Committee members? Staff? Nothing? Okay. Topics for next month's meeting?
Councilmember Medina?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So we moved some items from this meeting to next time. So I just want to revisit those very quickly here. We do plan to bring in high-level cost estimates for the request to do a modification to the Utah pool, what it would cost to make that a recreation center. So we're working on that, and we're on track to bring that in for June. And then high level cost of what a teen center might, the high level cost for a teen center. And we're also working on that as well. And then the other one was the financial feasibility study results and discussions around the rec fund. So we'll be bringing those three in. Those are all, there's a lot to absorb on all those items. And so I think I'm going to ask Nicole if she's still on. Nicole, you had mentioned medians for 2024. Will those be available for the June meeting, or will those be, I'm sorry, for the, yes, June meeting, or will that be July, please?
Yes, Brooke, we were planning on bringing that forward in June, but if the agenda is pretty tight, we can bump to July if that works better for the team.
Okay, we'll see. That's on the bubble. Medians are on the bubble for 2024. So that's what I have for the next meeting.
And Brooke, you wanted to mention the meeting date, right?
Yes, thank you for reminding me, Lauren. So typically, I would like to move the meeting to June 29th, the last week. Gives us a little more time to get everything together. But I also recognize that is the week where many folks go to CML. And I don't know if that is a possibility. If you're all out for CML, then I would keep it at the other Thursday. I don't have that date in June. But I would like you to consider June 29th if you're all in town, if that's meets with your schedules.
June 29th, I think CML ends on the 28th, at least according to a calendar invite I have, but so I don't think that would be a conflict.
Okay.
Same.
Yep. I'll be here, so we're good.
Same. I can do that.
Okay. Councilmember Marcano?
Yeah, that is correct. That will work for me as well.
Wonderful. Very much appreciate that. That'll give us a little more time. So we do appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Any other questions from committee members? Councilmember Murillo, Councilmember Marcano?
Nothing from me.
All right. Well, with that, thank you everyone for the presentations. Thank you for your time and enjoy the weekend. Have a long weekend, hopefully. So with that, we'll adjourn. Well, thank you.
Enjoy, everyone. Bye.
Happy Memorial Day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.